When my father lifted his glass at my brother's wedding, I thought he was finally proud of me. Then he laughed. My daughter worked for the Navy once. Still not sure what she did there. Probably counted bolts. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Light. Harmless. Ordinary to everyone but me. To me, it was the sound of every year I'd spent proving I was enough, collapsing at once. I didn't say a word. I didn't even blink. I just kept my breath steady. The way the military taught me. Small, quiet, contained. Because if I opened my mouth, something inside me would break. And when the laughter finally faded, one man in uniform stood up, and the entire room forgot how to breathe. My name is Eudora Whitfield, and that night, silence did what words never could. The ballroom glowed in amber light, every chandelier mirrored in the wide windows that faced the Chesapeake Bay. My brother Daniel's wedding felt like a stage play. Perfect lighting, polished smiles, laughter rehearsed for the camera. I sat near the back, a table far from the head one, where the music sounded softer and people didn't bother asking who I was. I'd learned long ago how to disappear politely, how to belong without taking up space. My mother's hand rested gently on the tablecloth, her wedding ring catching the light. She smiled at the crowd, the kind of smile that says everything's fine, even when it isn't. Across the room, my father, Thomas Whitfield, laughed louder than anyone else, his confidence carrying like thunder in a small valley. Daniel leaned close to his new wife, radiant and unbothered, too busy living his moment to look my way. When the MC handed my father the microphone, the room quieted. He stood, lifting his glass high, his voice bright with the authority of a man who builds things for a living. My daughter used to work for the Navy, still not sure what she did there. Probably counted bolts. The laughter spread quickly, easy and shallow. No one meant harm, they just followed the sound. I placed my glass down, steady, breathing small the way the service had trained me. Contain the world, one breath at a time. The lights shimmered across the white linens, rippling like water in a storm. Once, I'd stood on a bridge in a typhoon, holding steel together while waves tried to tear it apart. Tonight, I was holding something far more fragile, my own restraint. Then, through the laughter, a man at the head table rose, Major General Robert Hensley. He didn't speak. He simply watched me, measured, calm, unflinching. His silence cut cleaner than any insult. I lowered my gaze, unsure why my pulse suddenly matched the rhythm of marching boots. I didn't know then that the quiet in his eyes would one day silence the entire room. Humiliation is loud. Dignity, I've learned, is quieter. And that night, I chose quiet. The others just hadn't learned how to listen yet. Norfolk was a town that trusted only what could be built by hand. My father could judge a wall's strength just by sight. He always said a wall was only as strong as the man who built it. To him, labor was proof, and imagination was weakness. When I was 13, I drew a small bridge, proud of the lines I'd measured so carefully. I handed it to him. He barely looked at it before laughing. "Dreams don't hold concrete," he said, tearing the paper in two. I didn't cry. I only picked up one half where my handwriting still showed. Keep it straight, make it hold. That night, my mother taped the paper back together and hid it in the kitchen drawer. "Some dreams just need longer to dry," she whispered. The smell of sawdust filled our house. My father worked. Daniel followed him, and I watched, always too quiet, too different. He'd clap Daniel on the back and say, "This one builds real things. Eudora just fixes paper." I never argued. I only decided that one day, I'd build something that would stand long after his walls fell. The paper he tore had shaky lines, but it still held, and so would I. The first time I saw Okinawa from the deck, the sea looked endless, blue and sharp. In the Navy, there were no speeches, only sweat, noise, and silence. That silence taught me what control never could. Discipline is trust. During a storm, a convoy was trapped on a failing bridge. My team built a new frame through rain and wind. 40 people made it across. My commander said. You made that bridge hold. Whitfield, I answered. That's the job. Later, I saw the report stamped, reviewed, and approved by Major General Robert Hensley. I didn't know his name would return to me years later. I sent my father a photo of the bridge. His reply came quickly. Hope you're not wasting your degree fixing pipes. The wind stung my face. He would never understand that some bridges aren't made of concrete, but of patience. The sea built me, not with glory, but with grit. One day, I knew that quiet would be the loudest thing in the room. 14 years later, I drove along the Chesapeake Bay back to Norfolk, the town where everyone still measured life by fences. The house looked the same: white paint, tilted gate, old sign reading Whitfield and Sons Construction, since 1979. Nothing had changed, except me. My father opened the door, cement dust on his cap. You left dirt for desks, he said. Someone's got to make sure bridges don't collapse. He grunted. Bridges don't feed families. Contracts do. Dinner was quiet. My mother talked about weather. Daniel bragged about a contract. Still with the Navy? My father asked. I consult for the Pentagon now. He smirked. Consulting means talking while others work. I set my fork down. Sometimes talking prevents what hard work can't fix. Don't start lecturing. Not in my house. Later, my mother pulled out my old bridge sketch, sealed in plastic. I kept it, she whispered. He never asked. He will, someday. That night, Daniel knocked. Claire wants you at the wedding. Dad said, come, but not in uniform. He doesn't want attention. I laughed softly. Attention's never been my problem. The bay shimmered gold through tall windows. I wore navy blue, steady, quiet. Guests floated between tables, polite and shallow. General Robert Hensley shook my hand. You've served, he said. Once. He studied me, thoughtful. My father's laugh cut through the music. My daughter worked for the Navy. Now she does computer stuff. A man chuckled. Must be nice getting paid to send emails. Emails build faster bridges than some people's words, I said. Silence. My father hissed. Don't embarrass me. Later, Claire whispered. You're the engineer from Okinawa. My father still keeps that report. My pulse steadied. Fate had already aligned. As the music softened, my father touched my shoulder. Don't talk about your work. Just be normal. I knew. The joke was coming. The bridge inside me was ready. The chandeliers glowed soft gold, and the air was thick with laughter and wine. Jazz rippled through the room, light and careless. I sat near the back, watching my father on stage, his shoulders squared, his voice booming through the microphone. Beside him stood Daniel, glowing with pride, and Claire, beautiful and still, her smile trembling. My father raised his glass high. My daughter worked for the Navy once. I guess they didn't need that many pencils sharpened. The laughter came instantly, sharp, obedient, thoughtless. The kind of laughter people use to show they belong. Behind me, a woman whispered. She's the serious type. No wonder she's still single. I held my glass. My breathing even. 4 in, 2 hold, 4 out, the rhythm of storms. I had learned to survive hurricanes. This room was just another kind. Then the sound of a chair scraping across the floor sliced through the noise. Major General Robert Hensley stood up from the head table. He didn't speak right away. He simply buttoned his coat, his presence alone commanding silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but carried through every corner. Mr. Whitfield, with respect, you just insulted one of the officers whose design saved 300 Marines. The room froze. The clinking of silverware stopped. He stepped forward, squared his shoulders, and saluted me with military precision. Lieutenant Commander Whitfield, ma'am. Daniel's glass shattered on the floor. Claire gasped, tears welling. My mother pressed a hand to her chest. My father went pale, his mouth open but wordless. The general's metal caught the light, sending a narrow gleam across the table, landing on me. Then came the quiet that follows impact, the kind that humbles a crowd. Hensley's voice broke it again, low and measured. That Okinawa bridge, the one that held through the storm, she built it. Her work saved my men, my son, and a lot of fathers in this room. No applause, just silence, pure, heavy, and worth more than clapping. "Sir," I said softly, "the team held it together." He nodded once. "You gave them a bridge that didn't break. That's leadership." My father stumbled backward, his knees giving way. Daniel lunged to catch him, but the wine glass slipped, spilling red across the floor like blood. I stood, steady. "Everyone step back. Give him air." The room obeyed. "He's fine. Water. Check pulse." My voice didn't shake. It carried command, not anger. Even Hensley stayed still, watching me manage the chaos with calm precision. In those few minutes, the room shifted. The same people who'd laughed now followed my instructions without question. When the paramedics arrived, my father was sitting up again, dazed but quiet. He looked around until his eyes met mine, and for the first time, he didn't speak. When the noise faded, Hensley approached me. "You didn't need me to stand," he said quietly. "You already stood taller than anyone here." I managed a small smile. "Then let's both sit, sir." He chuckled, weary and warm. "After what you did tonight, ma'am, that's an order I can follow." 20 minutes later, the music had resumed, but no one was laughing anymore. People ate quietly, their words careful, their eyes avoiding mine. I stood by the window, looking out at the pier where moonlight shimmered on the water, exactly like it had on the bridge in Okinawa. General Hensley joined me, his reflection a steady outline beside mine. "You taught this room a lesson it didn't know it needed," he said. I smiled faintly. "Sometimes silence does the teaching." He shook his head. "No, respect did, and it saluted itself tonight." He told me he'd once reviewed a report from the Okinawa operation. My report. "It was the cleanest documentation I ever approved," he said. "I didn't know your name until tonight, but I never forgot that bridge." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The recognition wasn't loud. It was exact, like the sound of something finally locking into place. Claire and Daniel came over, their voices low. "You're the woman in my father's story," Claire said. "He made it sound bigger than it was," I replied. "He said it held because someone refused to give up." Daniel's eyes were red. "You held us too, Dory, even when we made you feel small." He hesitated, then added, "I laughed when Dad joked. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." I touched his shoulder. We all laugh when we don't know what else to do. When the room emptied, I found my father sitting alone, his hands trembling around a glass of water instead of wine. His voice was thin. "You didn't come to see me fall, did you?" "No, Dad," I said softly. "I came to stand where you told me not to." He gave a dry laugh. "Guess the floor holds better than my pride." For once, the words were real. No defense, no armor. The water in his glass caught the dim light, replacing the red stain that had marked the floor earlier. His shadow stretched across the wall, cutting through the wedding photo of Daniel and Claire. 2 generations realigned at last. Outside, I stepped onto the pier. Hensley passed by, giving a small nod. "You didn't correct him to win," he said. "You corrected the room to keep it decent." "Then maybe," I said, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the dark water. "It's finally straight," he smiled. "Straight, but not rigid. That's the line that holds." The wind brushed against my hair, carrying the faint scent of salt and cedar. The water gleamed like steel, calm and sure. The bridge inside me, tested, rebuilt, and stronger than before, finally held. The wedding ended early. The music had stopped. Tables cleared. glasses half empty and abandoned. I stepped out onto the balcony, where the moon spread its pale light over the bay. The wind slipped through the white curtains, carrying the faint scent of salt and smoke. Behind me, the house was silent, the kind of silence that follows an earthquake, when pride, not walls, has been shaken loose. I heard slow footsteps behind me. My father came out, his brown jacket slung over one shoulder. The edge in his face was gone, replaced by something unsure, smaller than I'd ever seen. He stood beside me for a long moment without speaking. Finally, his voice came low, rough. "I thought you were building nothing I could see." I kept my eyes on the water. "I was building things no one should ever have to see collapse." He looked over, his breath clouding in the night air. "Guess I built fences. And I built bridges," I said. He nodded slowly. "Maybe both kept people safe, but one kept people apart." For the first time in my life, his words weren't a challenge. They were an admission. His voice trembled, more from shame than drink. "That man, the general, he didn't humiliate me. He just held up a mirror. I didn't like what I saw." I smiled faintly. "Mirrors make good builders. Dad, they show you what's crooked." He gave a dry laugh that ended in a cough. "Guess I've been building crooked a long time." Inside, through the glass doors, I saw General Hensley shake Daniel's hand. Then he turned toward the balcony and met my father's gaze. He gave a small, knowing nod, a silent salute between two men who finally understood that not all strength comes from concrete. Both were builders, but only one had learned that sometimes you have to break a wall to save a home. The moonlight shimmered on the water like a thin silver bridge connecting where we stood. The balcony door clicked softly in the wind, the sound like an opening gate. My father lifted his jacket and placed it gently over my shoulders. No words, just the weight of apology, warm and real. I gripped the fabric lightly and said, "Maybe it's time to rebuild." "Dad," he managed a tired smile. "Then tomorrow, we fix the gate." I turned toward the bay, the wind brushing against my face. For the first time, his words didn't sound like orders. They sounded like the start of something new. Weeks passed before I could feel the world slow again. Back in Washington, the rhythm of the Pentagon was steady and exact, the kind of order that left no room for emotion. One quiet morning, a sealed envelope arrived on my desk, marked with the insignia of the Department of Defense. The first line read, "Recommendation for Chief Engineering Advisor, Department of Defense." Beneath it was a name written in firm black ink, Robert Hensley. I sat still for a long time. The office was silent except for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of my own heartbeat. I didn't need to read the rest. This was a salute written on paper. When I finally unfolded the letter, one line stood out. "Her integrity holds more weight than steel. Her silence is not absence, it's command." The words blurred as tears found their way down my face. It wasn't pride, it was understanding. For once, someone had translated the language I'd spoken all my life: silence, discipline, and dignity. A week later, the local paper ran the headline, "Norfolk native Eudora Whitfield, appointed Pentagon Engineering Advisor." Beneath it was an old photo of me in uniform, holding the bridge blueprint. I almost skimmed past it, until I saw a familiar comment beneath the article, "Thomas Whitfield. That bridge of hers. It's holding." I called home that evening. My father's voice came low, rough with age and emotion. "You saw it?" "I did." "So, it's holding?" "Yeah," I said softly. "And maybe the gate, too." He chuckled under his breath. "Good. Then I'll stop measuring it by inches." We didn't need apologies. The silence between us finally felt lighter, like a bridge no longer under strain. Later, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the old drawing my mother had saved. I pinned it to the wall beside my Okinawa medal. The edges were still yellowed, the tape still visible. I smiled and whispered to myself, Some dreams just needed longer to dry. A year later, I returned to the old house in Norfolk as autumn brushed the air with gold. The wind carried the scent of fresh wood. My father was in the yard, measuring the fence with a laser level, the same way he once taught me when I was small. "Fixing it again?" I asked. He nodded without looking up. "Let's make sure the gate opens right this time." Inside, my mother stirred something on the stove while Daniel and Claire chased their little boy through the kitchen. On the wall hung my bridge drawing, now framed beside Daniel's wedding photo. "He put it there himself," my mother said softly. I stopped. My father, the man who once tore that paper in half, had hung it there like a quiet apology. At dinner, Daniel raised his glass. "To my sister, who taught us that bridges don't just hold weight, they hold people together." Laughter filled the room, warm and real. My father looked at me and said quietly, "You fixed more than bridges. Eudora, you fixed me." After dinner, he stepped outside, removed his cap, and stood straight. His salute was clumsy, but honest. I placed my hand over my heart. No music, no audience, just respect relearned. The new gate swung open without a sound. "Straight enough?" he asked. "Straight's good," I said. "But what matters is that it opens. If you're listening for revenge, you won't hear it." What happened that night wasn't vengeance. It was a room learning what decency feels like. Some bridges are built with steel, others with silence, forgiveness, and one straight line finally done right. 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 Finally done